Welcome to Da Vinci's Discourse, where the minds of today's most innovative entrepreneurs are unveiled and explored. And my name is Kyle Campbell, your guide on this journey into the depths of the entrepreneurial psyche. So sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into the minds of the greats. This is Da Vinci's Discourse. Cool, brother. So Michael, dude, it's a pleasure to have you here, man. Why don't we get into, what you do? Because I'm curious about you, man.
So for the past 18 years, I'm founded a company called VIP Ignite, VIP Ignite Live, and what we do is we help aspiring models, actors, musicians meet with high-level executives in the entertainment industry, people who can snap their fingers and change their life in 30 seconds or less. And we do it through a combination of live events, networking events, coaching, kind of giving them all the tools and resources to be able to be very successful. So it's really interesting because working in the entertainment industry, it's like you're an entrepreneur, right? It's like whether you're a model, you're an actor, you're following the same format. You're trying to get from point A to point B. You need a roadmap, a guide, mentors, and so forth. So it's an interesting business, and we've been doing it for so long and very successful at it. So
Dude, you say snap your fingers and what did you say? Snap your fingers and
you get to
change
have
your
the
life.
opportunity to meet the people who can snap their fingers and change your life in 30 seconds or less.
And change their life in 30 seconds or less. Man, so dude,
Yeah, right. Imagine, you sat down with the vice president of Warner Brothers Casting. Like you're sitting down in front of the people who make the decisions, right? It's like,
Hmm.
it's really interesting. I'm part of Tony Robbins Platinum World, and everyone always wants to meet Tony Robbins, right? People
Yeah.
always say, I want to meet Tony Robbins, I want to meet Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins always says, okay, great. I'm always limited how many people I could meet. If you had the chance to sit down with me, what would you bring to the table? Like
Hmm.
what would you really ask me and in front of me that's not already covered in the materials? And it's
Right.
such an interesting point. Like a lot of times entrepreneurs or models or actors, like they're looking for this answer, like somebody to snap their fingers, right? So in
Hmm.
casting, you meet the right person, they can snap your fingers, right? But they could snap their fingers, I mean, but are you ready for that, right? Do you
That's
have what it takes to actually be there? You ready to be on set tomorrow? I was on TikTok the other day, and one of my good friends, he's the former art director of Vogue magazine for 40 years. He sent
wow.
me this TikTok video of this really great looking guy. He had just gotten signed to Wilhelmina, and Wilhelmina is one of the biggest agencies in the world. And somehow, I don't know where the disconnect was, but he had gotten a booking for a job, and it was a last minute booking. And when you work in this industry, a lot of things are like just last minute. Somebody else, something could have happened. They twisted their ankle, they, broke their toe, whatever it is, something happened where whoever was booked, and now this person got that opportunity, and he refused to do it because he was like, well, it was so last minute, and the agent should have given him more time to be prepared. Right. So it's like
Right. So
imagine
he
you
wasn't
spend your whole life
prepared is what it
trying.
comes down
Yeah,
to.
right. It's like
Yeah.
like you have a great idea for a business model, and somehow your message reaches Elon Musk, and Elon Musk calls you and says, I need you in LA tomorrow.
Mm.
Right?
You're
Would you
you
come
go,
up
you're
with an
fucking in
excuse?
LA
Yeah,
tomorrow,
you're gonna
baby. I
have to
don't
be
care what you're
there, right? It's like,
doing.
yeah, a door is open. So it's the same thing. So we create the serendipity moments for the talent to be able to meet with these high level executives. And
Mm.
I work
Wow.
with Russell Brunson and Tony Robbins and all these cool people, and I can tell you, like anytime I have an opportunity to be somewhere, I'm there.
Yeah.
And even no matter what the cost factor may be, I know that I can find the golden nugget. Like even if I couldn't close the deal, even if I couldn't make something happen, just to be in the room with the right people, it just pushes you forward, like just a little bit further. And
Mm.
and maybe something great will come of it. It's just like when you're an entrepreneur, it's just like when opportunities are there, you just have to like seize them. Like you can't allow yourself to start thinking like, what if this didn't work out? No, what if it did? Right? It's all about the story you tell
Right. No
yourself.
shit.
Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah.
you push forward. And I see so many times entrepreneurs like, I'm in a lot of different mastermind groups, and I see the questions they ask. The answers are all there. Like every answer you need. Like if you're providing value, you're providing results for your clients, you can be as successful as like the biggest person that you idolize, whoever it may be, right? A Russell
Mm.
Brunson, a Grant Cardone, or or any of the the heavyweights in this industry. But at the end of the day, they're doing is they're giving results, right? They're just putting information out, they're putting value out consistently. So if you know your business model, there's like the answers are there. Like everything else is just a matter of finding like the who, right? If you're not great with social media, great. Figure out how to make your social media better. your indoctrination pages, your landing pages, your, emails and so forth. We're actually working on a new business model called Vision Craft. It's called Vision Craft Course, where we actually take the hero's journey, right? So think of, I don't know if you're familiar with the hero's journey,
Oh
but
yeah,
in
yeah.
like
Joseph
movies
Campbell,
and
baby.
films,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like kind of like the Lord of the Rings, right? There's a formula they follow. Star Wars follows it. Like all great stories follow that.
Yep.
The
Yep.
person has to be given a mission, a task, they refuse it,
They
then they're
refuse at
put
first,
forward.
and then yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right. This
Uh-huh. Like in
transformation.
the
So when
Matrix,
you
out.
think of
Okay, go ahead, man. Yeah, yeah. Like in the Matrix, out at the beginning, Neil refuses to say, okay, well, no, I'm not going to jump out of this building. He gets arrested at first, and then that's when the forces started to take change in him like that, without
exactly.
his having a say in it. And then you go
Yeah.
through this journey of transformation, and that's what the mission is. And that's, I think,
Yeah,
what every great story is, and what really every great life entails. Yeah, so Joseph Campbell, I'm fascinated by him, man. But sorry, yeah, go ahead,
exactly.
man. Yeah, yeah.
So when you take that idea and you break it down, there's like 13 archetype stories underneath it.
Yep.
If you actually take those archetypes and you apply it to like an entrepreneur, you create like a journey of indoctrination for your clients. Because when you
Mm.
think about it, most clients, most people, what they really struggle about, it's not the results, it's getting the person to understand what they do, to like them, to trust them, to want to, to believe in them, that they can take whatever the pain that they're in, whatever the problem it may be in their business, how can that person help them? So when you take that person on that journey with you, and you kind of break it down, with them, whether in a video format or an email format, it kind of opens up that concept of a person saying, hey, I can work with this person. It makes the sales process a lot easier. So we're actually creating something where we're shooting, like, it's 13 videos. They're 1 minute videos that can be used on Instagram and so forth. We script them out. We have like a $20 million studio in Tampa. So we're actually launching that. I think in April is going to be the first shoot for it. But we're actually going to come in and take these entrepreneurs and bring them on this journey to create the content for their social media to kind of
Mm.
help indoctrinate their people through the 13 archetypes, through the hero's journey.
Right. So
So
one
something really
video per
exciting and cool.
archetype. Interesting, man. So how's that
Yeah.
playing out? Like tactically speaking, like let's say an entrepreneur comes in to do these 13 videos. What does that look like?
So what it comes down to is, this is how I know a lot of people believe in like organic traffic, like for building a business. And I think that's really cool. And it's kind of, I used to be in the restaurant business, and you can open up a restaurant and you can kind of hope that the customers find you, right?
Right.
Or you can do some really, like back in the day, you used to call it guerrilla marketing,
Nice.
where
Yeah.
you'd go out and you'd send out 10,000 flyers and 10,000
Yes.
mailers and really hit the areas, the zip codes hard with, marketing to bring in business. When I was in the restaurant industry, when I first started, the place that I bought, like, I was very young. I was like 21 years old. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was really good at marketing. And there were like 13 competitors there. So when I bought this restaurant, I didn't realize, like, oh, I had a lot of competition. By the time I would sell the restaurant 5 years later, because of the marketing, there would only be two competitors left. Like,
No
literally,
kidding.
we
Huh.
like just changed the whole business model in the area. So I learned very young that like marketing is so important. So the concept of these videos and the indoctrination sequence, it ties in with having a media buyer. Like, it ties in with like having the advertising, retargeting. So the person kind of sees the sequence of the videos and they're
Right.
consistently pushing them into the funnel and so forth. So the person kind of comes in, we have this big studio. They actually get to work with. So this is what's really cool. So it's cool as we're taking what we learned in the entertainment industry and then applying it to
Wow.
entrepreneurs.
I love
So we
that.
actually have we
Mm.
have like an Emmy award winning actor who's coming in, and he's going to work with them on camera presence
No
and so
kidding.
forth. The studio that we have, it's one of 4 studios where they actually shoot like the Mandalorian in
Huh.
there. So it has like one of those, like the entire back walls, like this high definition video screen. So like you can
Oh
literally
wow.
create the environment that you
No
want to
kidding.
be in. Like, it's really
Yeah.
cool. So like
Huh.
if somebody's like, if their business is based out of San Francisco, the whole backdrop can be based upon the San Francisco market. Or,
Yeah.
if they're in the restaurant industry, it could be based upon, the photos and the videos and the images. So it's able to be cut in real time, like very high end, giving it that cinematic feel. So
Yes.
it shows right out the gate, because there's so much content out there, and at the end of the day, giving great value and producing every day is good. And I think obviously that translates to sales. But if you can do something that's much more higher end and much more targeted to really talk to that avatar that you're looking for, and building the trust with them over this series of videos. So that, they see the ads, you kind of just give a quick overview. They see the ads, but then based upon the reactions, they'll get retargeted. So that way they start going through that indoctrination sequence. And then the same videos will actually go through, once they sign up, through an indoctrination sequence for them via email also. So that way, depending upon where they are in the buying cycle, they're not just getting hit with like, buy my product, but they're getting hit with like value, and understanding that this person kind of went through what you're going through. Because the
Yes.
point of the hero's journey is when you're the entrepreneur, you're not the hero of the story. You're the mentor.
Your
Your
customer is the
your
hero
client
because,
has to
yeah,
be the hero.
exactly.
They're
Yeah,
the
your
one that you're
client.
taking
Yeah,
on
even
these
better. Right?
journeys and so
Yeah.
forth. So yeah, it's something we're really excited about. Like I said, we're going to be doing the first shoot here in April. We actually just did a series of videos for ourselves. They came out really good. They're just finalizing them, so we're really excited about that. So
Right on, man. I love that. Yeah, so dude, what do
yeah,
you I love it. Seriously. It's so cool how you're bringing the entertainment industry to the entrepreneurial world like that.
yeah,
And if you think
yeah.
about it, it's the same thing. You're talking about a story where somebody starts off where you are not in a place where you want to be. You say no to the initial challenge that gets presented to you, and then you move your way up until eventually you're the Spider-Man character, or you're the Superman, where you're challenging and you're conquering challenges, whereas before you wouldn't have been able to, and you would have cowered it in the corner. When you look at these 13 archetypes that you're creating 1 minute videos for each of them, how do you sequence this? I mean, do you do it in sequence of like, how do you look at the process of
It,
posting
it's
these
taking
13 videos?
it's well, each one is customized, right, to the person's journey.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing. So for most people, a lot of times I think we work with different level entrepreneurs. Like we work with, like we're involved in a lot of different masterminds. And I'll tell you where the idea came from. So like obviously, I'm involved with, Russell Brunson, his inner circle, and ClickFunnels, and we just won a 10X award for VIP Ignite, right? And a couple of 2 Comma Club awards, which is cool. So when I was in that world, what I noticed is like we spoke into each other's listen. Like we really understood storytelling. We really understood a
Yeah.
lot. Like I definitely have to give a super shout out to Russell and his trainings and so forth. It's really, really on point in targeting the right avatar and being able, to use the art of storytelling. So as I was doing this was the world I knew. So I kind of like when I got involved in online marketing, like this is like was my first like indoctrination myself. So
Yeah.
this is all I knew. So to me, that was the whole world, right? This was like, oh, this is how you do it. Step A, step B, step C. I was at an inner circle meeting one time, and I'm sure your audience may be familiar with like the perfect webinar that Russell teaches about,
Oh
right? So
yeah.
it's the
Yeah. Yeah.
perfect webinar. So we were at this meeting, right? We were hanging out with Russell, and so this one guy goes, yeah, I love the perfect webinar. So there's this point where the only thing though, I made this little bit of a change to it just to kind of see the results. And Russell's like this. He's like, wait, no, no, what? You don't change it. It's the perfect webinar. It's in the name. It's called the perfect webinar, right? So it was just I don't know how I brought that up. It was just like a cool moment. But anyway, so I start working with all these other different masterminds and people who are involved in that world. And I realized that like where I would see what they were struggling with. Like most people always say, well, I'm struggling with leads. I don't have enough clients. I don't have enough
Right.
customers.
Mhm.
The customers that I'm getting, they're not good. They're tire kickers. They're, all this, they're, financial train wrecks and so forth. And I was just sitting there and I always start giving like advice. And I just kind of realized that there's so many, like, as big as you think the world is so much bigger. Like there's such unlimited opportunity. So I just really felt it was like kind of like our moral obligation to start helping more people with this process. So to go back to your question, like it's really what I noticed is a lot of people who are outside of that community, the ClickFunnels community, when they were telling their stories and when they were sharing their journeys, they were kind of like shying away from the struggles that they had. Like they felt that they had to
Ah.
put themselves on the superhero.
Right, they got
Yeah,
to be
like I have
perfect
to
right
be
out
the
the gate.
superhero.
Yeah, and then they're not
Yeah, and I
relatable,
had to
right?
be
Because
the
who the hell can
guru.
relate to Superman, right? Like, Superman's nothing but
Yeah,
his kryptonite, baby. So you got to start with the
exactly.
weakness,
And
right?
that's and
Yeah,
that's what I told him. I was like, that it's like Superman has kryptonite, right? Every great Superman, like I'm sure you know the story with Superman when the comic book first came out,
yeah,
it
no
actually
kryptonite.
bombed.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
exactly,
bombed
because he was too
because he was
perfect,
too great. Yeah.
unrelatable. Uh-huh.
It was
So,
unrelatable. So it's the same thing. I tell people, it's like you have to take them on an honest journey of how you got these aha moments, like why you're that
mm,
person who can really help them. And that there's just a certain aspect of a lane that you're really good at, and how do you apply it to that business. So like for us, being in production and Hollywood and Broadway shows and theatrics and, consistently on camera and consistently working with great people, we're like, hey, we can help people with this one aspect of really creating this great content, helping them tell their story, and then using media buying to drive traffic to it.
mm,
Because at the end of the day, those to me, right, and this is my personal opinion, when you have the right media buyer, you have the right messaging, the leads will come. And then it's
yeah.
just a matter of educating them and being able to help them. And to me, like even, I get people, some people struggle financially. I work in the entertainment industry. So we work with like what people say broke college students, right? But you know what? What I find is everybody has an iPhone, right? Everybody has, an iPad. They people get what they want. Like people really get what they want. And there's really in today's world, there's such unlimited opportunities. And like Tony Robbins always says, it really comes down to the fact it's not the resources. People can get the resources, but it's being resourceful, like really figuring it out. Like there are times like when I first started, the business, we started with like nothing. Like it was like a roll of the dice every week would we make payroll. And like our business is events. So like when
Mm,
you're in the event business,
mm.
like that is like of all the businesses you shouldn't go into is events.
Yeah, nobody
Because
makes money in
events,
events unless you're fucking Grant Cardone or I think
yeah,
Russell
unless you're
makes
Grant
money doing
Cardone or
events with
somebody,
events,
and even
but he
Grant
doesn't.
Cardone, his events are
Right.
designed that sell.
Exactly, right? So it's not the event itself that makes the money. It's not the ticket price. It's I mean, that just pays for the venue and the speakers. But what you're really talking about is the ascentment, the ascent to
The
greater
value ladder.
opportunities
Yeah,
within the event. Yeah.
yeah,
Man, so
yeah.
when you're telling a story
So
like that, or did I interrupt you?
no, 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 no,
Okay,
no.
cool, man. So
I'm
when
just,
you're
I'm just kind of, I'm a little bit all over the place, but I just figured I wanted to share as much information as I could, like just to be, how we got where we are and so forth. But yeah, no, but our events, yeah, to kind of wrap that story up, our
yeah.
events weren't designed with like an upsell, so they were like deliverables. So like
Oh,
we
right.
literally, like our
Mm,
events were designed like you'd have the opportunity to sit down and meet with 35 of the most powerful people in the entertainment industry.
yeah,
So when
wow.
we first started this business, we would rent out these huge like venues, and we'd have like catering, just all, just over the top, the theatrics, the staging, and there was no upsell. It was just like literally what you were promised, you received. And it was just, and we did that for so long. So we
Oh.
were consistently always kind of like chasing the next event and so forth, because you're like,
Mm,
okay, great, we gotta sell the next event to kind of make sure we can pay for the third event. And it's just like this like kind of really bad cycle we got ourselves into.
right.
And and doing ourselves, kind of like not being able to have the kind of lifestyle that you should have for the amount of effort you
Mm,
were putting into it, because you were kind of making those sacrifices early on. Um, and you can't go back in time, right? So what we did and where we got to, it kind of led up to what we're doing now, right? Like I really can understand
right.
like that journey of, I get the fact when somebody, okay, this customer is can't afford your product. How do you work with them and so forth? And we've learned to, now we've learned, of course, to have a value ladder, to have like our own, inner circle where we're able to give them more time and more attention and a more higher level of, service and so forth. But it took us a long time to get to that level where where we really understood like working with the right people versus like working with a lot of people who just, especially in the entertainment industry, they want to be famous, right? And it's like it's really,
True.
and
Mm,
I get that, right? Like I get you want to be famous, but it's really not about being famous in this business. Like some of the most successful actors and some of the most successful models, like you wouldn't even know their name. Like you see them on shows, you recognize the Al Pacinos and the Julia Roberts and so forth. But think about all those secondary and third people that you can see consistently, or even commercials. We have one woman, she's 61 years old. She did oh my God, she did a Verizon ad, an AT&T ad, she did a Starbucks ad. But then there was, and she was making like $30,000 a day for these ads. But then it was like an off-brand product. It was, oh, You'll Play. It was
Ah,
the yogurt
yeah,
company.
right. Yeah,
She did
yeah.
a commercial for them. It was a six-figure ad. It was $100,000. So it was really interesting. Like, and I think like the AT&T ad was actually, oh no, yes, it was the AT&T ad was a billboard in Times Square. She was on a billboard in Times Square. That one actually paid less because you were technically getting like a lot more exposure. It's like even in the modeling industry, like
Mm,
if you're on the cover of Vogue magazine, they pay like $750 to be on the cover of Vogue because you're on the cover of Vogue.
right.
Saturday Night Live, when you see the performances on Saturday Night Live, they're there for the whole week. Lauren Michaels, you have to be there like every day for rehearsals and all that. Whoever the host is and the musical act, they only get paid $750 too for that, which is really interesting. But you're on Saturday Night Live, so
Right.
or
Yep.
like even the Super Bowl. I always ask people all the time, like, how much do you think that an artist gets paid to be in the Super Bowl halftime? And people always throw these crazy numbers out. I'm like, it's actually nothing. They actually pay to
Yeah.
be the performer
Interesting.
there. A lot of
Right.
people don't realize that. Yeah, they actually pay. Or even when you win a Tony, like we won several Tony Awards, and this was something
Wow.
I learned too. I was like, oh great, I get to my Tony Award. They're like, no, where's your credit card? It's like 1,600. I was like, oh, wait,
No
you don't
shit,
get it?
eh?
Yeah, no, it's
Wow.
a business. They sell you the Tony Award. So think about it, like it's, don't get me wrong, it's cool, but
Yeah.
it's not $1,600. They make a profit. It's like even when you watch the Tony Awards, the musical acts in between, like when you see the musical acts
Yep.
performing, they pay to be in the show.
Right.
They're
Mm.
not invited there, and the Tonys pays for it. They pay for the privilege of advertising the show during the Tony Awards
Right.
and
I mean,
so
it goes
forth.
back to the marketing, the exposure that you're getting from being,
Yeah.
and then you can say for the rest of your life, oh, we performed in the Tonys, or
Hmm.
we've got this
Yeah.
accomplishment, this accolade. The same
Yeah.
thing as I guess in your case, winning the Two Comma Club X award. You get to say this, and you get the status
You
and
get to say this and you're helping Russell advertise, right? Brilliant
that's true,
marketing on
right?
his part.
Exactly, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yo, so
Yeah.
man,
It's
when
like no
you,
different for PR. I tell people all the time, like
yep,
when you see authors on, promoting their books on the Today Show and so forth,
right,
it's PR. It's a compensated, thing that you can do, right? Like Fox News, if you see, you want to promote your new widget or whatever on their, Friday morning show, it's like $3,500 for like a local market to be on the show. Like, so
mm,
even the news is a vehicle for it's business, right?
yeah.
It's not free. So I tell people and it's something I learned, just over time. Of course, I learned it early on, but it's always amazing how people who want to be in the entertainment industry don't realize like the cost involved, not only in the practicing and the training, but just in the marketing of yourself to be available. That casting directors know your name and people are available. So like in that business, there's a proven tactics and framework to follow, and it's a very small community. Entrepreneurship, it's kind of the same idea. We're doing a partnership with Kevin Harrington. We're doing a partnership with Brian Tracy and
Mm,
so forth. And it's all pretty sizable investments, but it gives us access to their audience, right? Like Brian Tracy, we're doing a JV partnership with his audience is like over 5 million people for Visioncraft, for the opportunity to work with us with a video series and the
mm,
scripting and so forth for the indoctrination sequence. So that investment, even though it was a sizable investment, has now turned into, what hopefully will be a long-term partnership. So I tell people all the time, like when you're an entrepreneur and so forth, you gotta look for the right rooms to be in, the right people. You have to have, a little bit of wisdom, like some deals are great deals. And I know a lot of people invest in a lot of programs and they always feel like they didn't get anything out of it. I hear that all the time, from different people. And I'm like, well, that's a story you're telling yourself, right?
yeah,
Like there
exactly.
was a room of other people there. Like did you leverage those contacts?
Mhm.
To me, I'd pay $1 million to get one nugget of information that could change my life,
No
right? Think
kidding.
about
Or
it. If you
meet
could
one
pay a
person
million
that could change
dollars,
your life. You ask the who,
yeah,
not how question, and you start to realize it's one person that could change your life. You go to one of these
yeah,
events, maybe it's not the information that you get, maybe it was a pitch fest, but you met one individual who could be your
one
partner and then
individual.
change your
I'll be
life, change
honest,
their life, change the lives of many as a result, right?
14 years ago, I went to a venue. I went to a venue. It was in LA, and it
Yeah.
was with the person who was in charge of our PR at the time. A very, very early company. We just started. And while I was at this thing, it was like, I've never been to this before. It was one of those old school where everyone's doing a stack and an offer, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
speaker after
yeah.
speaker after speaker after speaker. So I wind up meeting a gentleman. I wind up meeting a gentleman by the name of Greg Reed there. And at the time he was working on that book, 3 Feet from Gold. And
Right.
I wind up meeting him. He was somewhat successful, but not at the level where he is now. Wind up talking with him and so forth. Wind up getting his phone number, put it in my phone, followed up with him a couple of times, but we both went in our own separate directions. And wind up about a year and a half ago, was at another event. I was at a crypto con in Miami, and Greg was happened to be there. I was like, oh my God, it's Greg Reed. Right
Mm.
now, everybody kind of knew him. The book was out, and he's written multiple books, and he does Secret Knock and all these big events. So I walk over and so I was like, oh my God, Greg, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you about 14 years ago. And he's like, well, I meet so many people. I do apologize. Not really. I was like, all right, well, we started chit-chatting. And of course I said, let me get your number. I'm putting his number in and boom, his name comes right up. It was the same exact number. And we both laughed at it. And now since then, he's spoken at like a dozen of our events. I'm
Mm.
actually going out to meet with him in San Diego in a few weeks. So my point being is, that event that I went to 14 years
Right.
ago, I could have
Yes.
looked at it as a waste of time, my
Hmm.
flight, my hotel, just a bunch of people selling dreams and so forth. But Greg happened to be in that room. That seed that was planted, it took
Yeah.
14 years to come to maturity. So I tell people, like, no matter where you are, there's value in the room, even if it's the value to learn what not to do with your audience.
Right. And
And
it's a
so
failure.
how
This is
was
the question I like to ask myself. It's a failure when, because it's easy to look at something that you invested in and you didn't get an immediate return on, and you look at it as a failure. But then you ask yourself, like your story, 14 years later, it was a failure when, 14 years later, that
Mhm.
seed was planted and it grew into something that it was potentially very lucrative for you. But man, when it
Yeah.
comes to the entertainment industry and the entrepreneurial world, because you've been in both now and significant player in both of those worlds, what are some
Mhm.
things that you've been able to correlate, so to tie together from the entrepreneur, or no, from the entertainment industry from to the entrepreneurial world?
I think definitely hard work, dedication, professionalism. I think what I really too, I think in today's world, like production value, I think is getting a little bit more important. Like for targeting, there's so much noise out there on social media. So I think production value really is important. I
Mm,
think branding is very important. Like,
mm,
if you think about, the biggest companies in the world, like if you saw a Starbucks cup and even the word Starbucks wasn't on it, you would recognize that green. You would
yeah.
recognize, like you
Oh
would like,
yeah.
Kentucky, like a McDonald's, even without the McDonald's thing, that you recognize that. Like the
Yeah.
branding is so strong. So I think a lot of times for entrepreneurs, investing in the right photos, getting really
Mm,
great photos on your
mm,
website, like you have to just show like that professional, level. I think communication is really important. In the entertainment industry, when you're on set, when you're doing a production, there's so much communication. Like, you have to
right.
be on set 5 a.m. You're gonna be there 12 hours. Like you're literally working with a team. You notice like great directors, like one of our coaches that works with our talent is Bobby Finaro. He was on The Sopranos. He was
Mm.
in The Irishman. I love hanging out with him. Like he's just like we'll go to New York. We'll get like an espresso or something. I'm sitting there with like one of the dudes from The Sopranos.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a free book that you can get if you want to tap into more of these resources. And you can get that for free at kylesbook.com. Back to the podcast.
But he's really good friends with like Martin Scorsese. So he'll talk a lot
Mm,
about improv and about being on set and working with these really great people. And it's just like, to me, when you're in the entertainment industry, like the one thing I've learned the most from is observation, right? So like when you're
mm.
on set, you're observing, what is the director doing? What is this person doing? Like how like the whole project works. Like think about like even for when
Interesting.
you're filming, like a glass of water, if you're filming, like it's like multiple hours they're filming. If you're taking a sip, well, guess what? Somebody
Yes.
has to come and refill the water,
Yeah, yeah,
right? To
yeah. Or the
keep the
cigarette, the classic
consistency.
cigarette, where it's one scene, it's
Yeah,
like
with the
they
cigarette,
smoke
where it's
like 5 minutes of the cigarette in one like half second. Yeah,
yes.
right.
So it's like as an entrepreneur, a lot of times I tell people all the time, like you can observe and learn so much just watching what that one person who's doing successful, right? Like
Yeah.
how is, insert whatever person that you feel is doing something in your lane
Mm,
and they're doing it so great. It's what are they doing? How many times a day are they going live? How are they
Mm,
presenting themselves? Like a lot of times people don't use listening skills. The entertainment industry, it's so
right.
much about listening, right?
Interesting.
Because when you're an actor, your only goal is to listen and to create an emotion in the other actor,
Right.
right?
And the other
That's your
actor as
job. Your
well,
job.
which
Right?
yeah, which creates the emotion in the audience member that's watching at the end of the day
Yeah.
too. So it's
It's like, what
interesting.
is it that you're doing? Like, if I'm going to get the
Right.
mail, am I going to get the mail mad? Am I going to get angry? Am I
Yes,
trying
yes.
to provoke you? Am I trying to get you to be on my side? Right. So it's all
Mm,
about this exchange of emotions. So,
mm,
like, when you utilize that, like, as an entrepreneur, it's
yes.
so beneficial. Like, what is the reaction you're trying to get from your audience? And
Mm,
how do you portray that? Because you're on camera, right? It's not so many times, I don't want to be a talking head. No, like, you're not a talking. I can tell you, if you're a great actor, you're not a talking head. You're portraying emotions. You're getting the person to react just in
yeah,
the words that you choose. So it's the same thing. Like watch movies, watch Netflix, see how story arcs are created, see how
yeah.
storytelling. What's the hooks, right? Oh my God,
Right.
Netflix. I plan on watching like one episode. I'll turn on Netflix. It's like 2 days later,
Yeah, no
right? What?
shit.
How did that
Yeah, we've all
happen?
been there,
Right?
man.
I
Yeah.
didn't, when that little button starts, next episode in 3 seconds, I'm always like, okay, I meant to only watch one tonight, but I got to know what happens next. And then boom,
Yes.
boom, boom. So it's the
Yep.
same thing. Like as you're doing your storytelling, like, tomorrow we're actually meeting with he was on the show The Doctors with Dr. Phil.
Okay.
He owns like a private jet, and he invited us out. He does these big masterminds, and he has a helicopter. So we're going to hang out with him, and he's going to be on our podcast actually. So he's taking us up on his helicopter, and we're going to go chasing manatees around in Tampa tomorrow. Right? Nothing to do with the entertainment industry, really. Nothing to do with entrepreneurship, but it's a story,
Mm,
right? It's the story of a connection of what we're doing. So I tell
yep.
people all the time, like for social media, like create that story every day. Like take the people
Mm,
on the journey, what you're doing, be transparent. Like today you had a great day. So, today wasn't the best day. Talk to them about that.
right.
Like create like it's almost like your own reality TV show.
Yep.
Right. And a lot of times people always say to me, but my life is so boring. Right. Well,
Right.
to you, it may be boring, right? We
Because
get
it's
people all
you're
the time
used to
like,
it.
well,
Yes.
I'm a barista at Starbucks. Well, that's so boring. What do you mean? Like, I don't know. What does a barista do? Like, how do you make all those
True.
drinks? Have you ever had a
True.
crazy customer? Have you ever, somebody who comes in and
And
they
it
order
depends.
one of those Instagram drinks where it's like, 55 different,
Right, right,
items,
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
like,
like it depends on what you consider and how you tell the story, because an interesting
yeah.
story that could be fascinating if one person tells it, but completely boring if another person tells it. And so you're saying to look at how the best of the best are telling the stories and be able to exemplify that same level of captivation, that same level of
Yes. And then
burning
how do you apply
fire
that
in
to your
them.
business to elevate them, right?
Yeah,
It's like learning to make
right.
angles, right? It's like, I don't know, it's like, what does a cell phone and a mouse pad have in common with your business? Well, let me tell you, but before I start telling you that,
There
my
you go.
name's,
That
right?
was a sweet hook. You just came up with on
Yeah,
the
it's
spot like that, man. Wow.
yeah, right. Curiosity hook, right?
Yes.
And you just get and you know what's cool about it as you social media is so cool because you get to practice all day, right? Because that one video
True.
technically it technically goes into the ether, right? Most people aren't really scrolling past your 10 or 12 videos unless they're hyper buyers. Then they're going back to the beginning of time. I tell people that too. That's another good one too that we've learned. That's a good tip. If you're a new business owner and you're just starting up your social media, you're just starting up your podcast, you're
Yeah.
just starting up your Instagram, your TikTok, however your systems are, it's such a great place to be because it's a blank canvas.
Mm.
And for the people who are like hyper buyers that'll come into your world in the future, they may go back to that very first episode.
Yes,
So
of
that first
course.
episode, it's like a sitcom, right? The very first episode of a
Mm.
sitcom, they introduce the characters, they introduce the
Right.
storyline, and so
Hmm.
forth. Then this like the first 5 episodes are usually getting the audience to understand who the characters of the show are. And then at
Right.
that they could start branching off into different storylines. So if you follow the same way,
Mm.
those first episodes of your podcast, those first video reels you're putting up on TikTok or Instagram, think of it as your show, right?
Yes.
Start the journey there. Start the journey why you're doing this stuff. So in the future, you go back and you can also remember your why. You remember where you were when you first started. And even as you progress and you get better, like we you know our podcast host, she's on over 300 episodes now, and she's like, her very first episode wasn't her best. She actually, her first episode, she had to interview the art director of Vogue magazine, and she had come from the dental world. So she's like, oh my God, I know a lot about dentists, but well, I don't know anything about, and I was like, just relax, just, he knows what he's doing, it'll be fun.
Hmm.
But she always will point back now that, hey,
Mm,
for our people, like I was where you were once too. Actually, if you
right.
want, go back and listen to my very first episode, and you can see where I started.
Mm,
And you can see my journey, how I've gotten better and improved over time. So I tell people all the time, like everyone, in the entertainment industry, everyone has to be given a chance. Age doesn't matter, location doesn't matter. Everyone has to start someplace. Every entrepreneur, every person you've ever looked up to, they all were you at one point. Like they were just learning, right? It's like
yeah.
they were just driven by something to continuously learning. And it's like, it's that old saying, being able to be one chapter ahead brings so much value. Like
Mm,
every day, it's like I'm always studying something on AI, or I'm studying something on, SAG after rules, or, recently with testimonials with the Federal Trade Commission, right? They kind of started different
mhm.
rules, how online marketers can promote, themselves, right? Because so many of them go, let's be honest with you, they're marketers, so they do get a little bit carried away.
You don't
And some of
say,
the
eh?
videos, and I was sitting there and I was reading an interesting thing, and I'll just throw this out. I was like, it was like, well, if you're going to put testimonials out, you have to have, like, the testimonials have to be fair to show both sides. Like somebody who's very
Mm.
successful, but
Which
maybe
has
somebody
an
who,
advantage with the marketing, man.
which
It's
has an
like it's a
advantage. I
huge
thought that was
advantage, man.
brilliant.
I mean, like that's the
Yeah,
best part. And the way that I do this is I start with the negative of it, and then I use the word but, and I say so. Like the old Volkswagen magazines, for example, like they're small, they're slow, they're ugly, but, and then you go into the
mhm,
positives of it. Now they trust what you're saying in a way that they couldn't have never trusted before because you got that authenticity that you wouldn't have had if you didn't go into the negatives first. Yeah, so I mean, it's a huge
exactly.
advantage when it comes to it. So
Yeah,
it's the negative and positive to everything. You can look at that as like, oh, now how am I going to show my testimonials or how am I going to market my
right.
product? It's like, man, you lean right into that and you
Into it,
take
and you
full
get excited
advantage.
about it. Yeah.
Yes. Hmm,
Yeah, that's a
interesting.
great, for everybody who's listening to us in the future. That's a great tip right
No
there.
shit,
Just
man.
you lean
Yeah, I love
into it. Yeah,
that.
like it. I always go, it's a challenge. We never
Mm,
have problems at my company.
I
We
love
have
that.
challenges. They're
Yes,
always a challenge.
yes.
Every day we expect 20 challenges, 18 little ones and two big ones, because
Hmm.
that way when the challenge comes through the door, we get excited. We're like, we were expecting you to be here today.
Nice. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Oh
just how you
man.
look at
So
it. Not a problem, it's a challenge.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. And you can't have the opportunity without the problem or without the challenge, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's two sides of the same coin. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So when it comes to connecting with somebody, like let's say because you're connecting with all kinds of people, right? How do you know what to say or what to do to connect with an individual that you want to connect with?
So, great question. So, um, what I found, and I learned this from somebody who's actually a very successful entrepreneur, investor, um, and he had told me, he says he works with a lot of really super successful people, and he says what the way when you approach somebody, and I learned this a long time ago, and it works so great, is when you approach them, you ask them what are they currently working on that they're the most excited about.
Mm,
Right.
yes.
So what
Mm,
product, so like when you're an entrepreneur, there's always something, right now, you see when I talk about Vision Craft, like light up. I'm all excited, right? It's
yeah,
a new
yeah, yeah.
project. So
Mm-hmm.
you ask them, what is it that they're most excited about? And then as they're talking about it, you offer how you could bring value to
Yes.
helping them with it,
Yes. Mm,
right? So
mm,
for myself, like when we meet, different people in the entertainment industry, entrepreneurship, we'll invite them on our podcast, or we'll invite them to be a speaker at one of
yes.
our events,
Yes.
or if we're doing, an event with somebody who maybe they would work well to be in alignment with, and so forth. We'll say, hey, let me reach out to so and so. Let me see if I can, I'll get you a VIP pass to come out to the event or something like that. So it's always what is the value you can bring to them based upon what they're the most excited about. And that always opens up the door to, like, kind of start a relationship. It's not
Mm,
about what they can do for you. It's always about how you can serve them the best.
mm,
And that's how you create a true relationship. Like, and that is like hands down in any business. And a lot of times people, we do it to
mm.
the point, like where some deals are great and some we bring a lot of value and the person doesn't reciprocate. and we're okay with that. Like we're
Happens.
totally,
Part of it.
it just
Yeah.
happens. It's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something will come back in the future. Or
Right.
I always
A
like to just say
14-year
like,
seed, right? Exactly.
yeah, right. Planting the seeds, or just also just learning that that's just not the right person for us, and that's
True.
okay too.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people like we have as many clients as we have a ton of clients who decided not to work with us. And we used to always get frustrated with it, like in the early stages. But we can help you. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
I know.
understand. Oh my God.
I know what you
I
mean,
want to
dude. It's
just
like, come
reach in
on,
the
if only you could
screen
see
and
what I
strangle you.
see.
I can help you. I know exactly what to do. And the
Yes.
person's like, no. And you're like, but you're walking off a cliff. Like you're literally like we actually saved that. We were so maniacal. We used to save people's like contact to like research them like a year later, 2 years later. And we would reach back out to them. We like, hey, we know you came in for an interview 2 years ago. We see that kind of you didn't get where you wanted to. And would you be interested in coming back in? I literally have so many clients
Hmm.
that were like, because we have like an indoctrination sequence that's like, I don't know, 9 years long or something like that. Like once you're in, yeah, we just keep adding new emails to it. I'm like Anthony Morrison of emails. Like we just like, okay, great. If you don't decide to sign up today, maybe you will in the future. But I can't tell you, we have a lot of people who signed up with us who came into our world years ago and then
Right.
would come back around. Maybe they'd see a retargeting ad or they'd see another ad or something. But but you have to at some point just realize there are some people, Tony Robbins tells a story about I don't know if you ever heard the one with the person who's it's his first day on the job at the Coast Guard, and he's like the helicopter pilot for the Coast
Right.
Guard.
Yeah.
You heard that story?
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
just do
yeah.
a
Oh, I've
30
heard all the
second version.
stories, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do the 30-second version. But anyway, it's his first day on it, he's in the Coast Guard, his first day on the job, and he of course gets the call that there's a boat that flipped over in the water. He has to fly out and go rescue these people. And when he gets out to where these people are and they're all floundering about in the water, he looks and he realizes there are more people in the water than there are seats in the helicopter. And he realizes he's not going to be able to save them all because by the time he goes back and forth, these people are going to drown. So he asks his captain, his boss, he's like, I don't know what to do here. He says, listen, bring the helicopter closer to the water. People will start swimming towards you. The ones that start swimming towards you are the ones that you can save. And
Yes.
the sooner you accept that, the
Mm.
better your life will be, right?
Right.
Everything ends and everything
Mm.
changes. So it's the same thing for entrepreneurs or for people, especially in the entertainment industry. You can only help the people who want to help, the people that are swimming towards you. If they're
Yeah.
not, you can't take that with you and let that become your story and
Mm.
prevent you from being able to live your best life. And so many times people find that's their favorite flavor of pain. For us, it was a very
Uh,
long time trying to help the ones who were swimming
yes.
away.
I
We
know
were
we've
like
all been there,
chasing
man.
them.
It's a tough pill to
Exactly.
swallow.
I think everyone does. Like I feel your energy in you. You have such a good heart. I feel your energy even from here across the screen. And it's like we're the same thing. So I'm almost tearing up just thinking about it, see how
It
I am.
sucks, man. It's terrible, dude. Because if only
Yeah,
they, oh
yeah,
man, but I don't know. It is what it is. It's a tough pill to swallow, man. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, but dude, when you talk about connecting with somebody and building that value for them, how do you know what value to deliver so that they're in a state of mind that they want and they're excited to connect with you? How do you know what to give them?
From like a perspective, like a speaker perspective or a client perspective.
A speaker perspective, or maybe a joint venture perspective, or somebody that you're trying to connect
Um,
with that's perceived as a higher status than you?
yeah, great question. So the higher up the speaker is, or the higher up the status level, it's always a lot harder to figure out the value you can bring because
Mm.
where you are on your journey, they're already have the systems in place that a lot of things that I may be able to bring to the table, you know what I mean? It's like, say it's somebody like a Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins always says, hey, you can sit down and meet with me, but what is the value you can bring? Like if
Mm.
you have a list of 1 million people, Tony Robbins is like, okay, I'm interested in that, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we do a soft venture partnership with Tony. His coaches come out and speak at our events, and we're able to give them free tickets to UPW and so forth. So it's like a cool relationship that we have. But it's always interesting because I was always sitting there, it's like, ooh, yeah, Tony Robbins is right. Like you need to bring something really good to
Right.
work with Tony, right? Even
Yeah.
Russell, when he first started working with Tony, he actually registered mastermind.com
He bought it for 400,000. He wound up gifting it to Tony,
Yes.
to be able to kind of grab Tony's attention, right? So when you're working with high level people, it's like it's sometimes it's the simplest things, it's usually a connection. It's usually really finding out, like, what are they most excited about, and what's the one thing that they need right now that could help that project move to the next level.
Mm.
It's like with Brian Tracy, when we did that JV. It was kind of just wasn't expected. Like, it was just his team just thought the product was really so good and that it would bring value to their audience. So for a lot of times, that was, just serendipity. It just worked out perfectly with that. Working with Kevin Harrington. Kevin Harrington's like, you have to really understand, like, Kevin Harrington, he's brilliant, right? Like, I'm in a mastermind with him. I'm actually gonna be with him next week. But his business model, like, people know him from the Sharks, right? From the Shark Tank. So anybody, like, a lot of people will come up to him, well, I have this idea, Kevin, right?
Yeah.
And there's lots of ideas out there. With Kevin, do you already have the product in place? Is it
Mm.
scalable?
Yeah.
Is it already profitable?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think the higher the speaker it is, or the higher the person, the relation. I'm using the word speaker because that's just my world that we call. But for an entrepreneur, or the person that you want to JV with or connect with, it's understanding being able to speak into their listen, what
Yes.
it is they're looking for.
Mm.
It's not about what you're bringing and offering always, but understanding what
Yeah.
it is, how they perceive and listen, and what is the value of what you have or could make happen,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
It's like Russell with the domain, or with us, it just happened, the product lined up. But like with a Kevin, unless you have a business that's scalable already, like for Vision Craft, we were speaking about the concept of franchising it. So creating like
Mm.
different, because think about, like, when you want to do video work or studio work, like, where would you really go? Like, it's just like the cost factors are all over the place. Like, we priced out, like, video production teams. They range anywhere from $500 for, like, a couple of college students to 90,000 for, like, a 3-minute video for somebody who's working with Disney, right? So
Right.
that's $500 to 90,000 for a 3-minute video. Like, so think about that means there's a big fractionalized market there. Because
Mm.
even from recording studios, if you want to be like a music artist, like, where do you go? Like, how do you know what's a great recording studio, right? How do you know the equipment they have, the production team, the producers, the mixers, right? There's, like, the music industry is so, kind of icky in a way, because there's so many people that sell production for music artists, and they're doing it from home equipment. Like, it's
Yeah.
just not, they're not at
Mm-hmm.
that level of, and then also, like, once you get the music produced, it's getting it out there and seen. So then,
Whole different
there's a lot
story.
to it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing. So we were thinking, okay, great, and that this could be a franchise where now these video studios can be set up in markets throughout the country.
Mm.
And now you have, like, a business model that can be scaled up through franchising, through, you can now you can branch into not only doing for entrepreneurs, local commercials, local, businesses, all kinds of different content and so forth. Instagram, you create Instagram studios, right? There's a lot of that now. You see a lot of, they have, like, sets that are like airplanes, or, like, people, create skits and so forth. So there's definitely something there for that. So it's like being able to improv, almost in a way, like, okay, this is what the person's suffering, or this is what they need to get to where they want. What can I actually make that happen? And following up. That's the number one thing too. I can tell you so many
Mm.
times. But our thing is, like, we literally, when we meet people, we follow up. Like, we're literally,
Yeah.
like, within minutes, sending them a text message, sending them an email, thanking them, following up, sending out, a gift card, or, flowers, or, edibles, something to make sure that we showed our appreciation for them spending the time with us and so forth. And a
Yes.
lot of people just don't do that anymore. It's just kind of
Mm.
like, they may hit you up with a text message a few days or something. Like, I meet a lot of people, some people, the ones who follow up, I'm always in contact with. The ones who don't, it's just kind of, they just get lost, because it comes a point where your time is the most valuable resource.
Of
So it's
course.
just like, a lot of times people always want to pitch me for, hey, Mike, I got this idea and so forth. And I like listening to them, but a lot of times it's like, I've learned over time, like, to kind of protect my time too. And I tell them, instead of just put it in an email, or send me over a PDF, or tell me exactly what the results are that the product's
Mm.
going to do, and tell me where what is it you're working on? What are you stuck with, and what are you doing to solve it? And then I can kind of take it from there. because I instead of giving you an idea that you've already tried, then maybe here's something that we found in the past. So it's kind of making the conversations with people to the point like they can help themselves, right? Like you want them to be able to help themselves, and you're just kind
Interesting.
of giving them that one nugget of knowledge. So when you're meeting the higher level people,
Yes.
they're that's where they're at. They're with this like, okay, I know how to run a business. I know how to do this. This would help me get where I want to go faster. For them, it's always about getting where they need to get faster, because most people at a higher level, they're not running the business themselves. They're creating the teams that will run the business. It's the same thing. It's like sitting out the vice president of Warner Brothers casting. He's got an entire team. He's just moving the chess pieces and so forth, and just being aware of everything from his experience. Like it's like running a restaurant, and you walk in and you really have an understanding. Like I can walk into any restaurant and see, okay, here's where their backlogs are. It's like Marcus Lemonis, right? When you watch the show, he goes in, the people and the processes, right? And he says, hey, this is where you're stuck. Let's fix this and so forth. And it just comes with wisdom and experience. That's why at the end of the day, having a mentor, paying to be in the right masterminds are so beneficial. And you go out there, like, to me, whether it's $100,000 mastermind, $300,000 mastermind, like it's the people you meet in the room, just can change your life. Like you only get to live one life, and you figure it out. Like you make it happen. Trust me. Like when you want something, you can figure it out. So,
Always, dude. Yeah, it's like it goes back to Think and Grow Rich. You become what you think about. Absolutely, man. Let's
yeah.
say somebody is listening and wants to contribute to what you're working on right now. What are some of the problems that you're facing that somebody could step in and be that savior for you?
Right now, so what we're looking for, obviously, because we're working on two different brands within the same genre, so to speak. What we're looking for right now is a COO. So either a full-time COO, or we're looking to start with like a fractional person to kind of come in, help with the SOPs, help with a lot of the stuff. Like right now, like we have like over 600 hours of training content that we're using on one platform currently, and we want to move it to another platform. So somebody like who's able to come in and kind of help organize that with the team, because that's like a big project to do. Um, you know, really that COO right now is really what we're looking for. And then of course, if any opportunities, opportunities to, speak from stages, podcast, any type of branding opportunities. We're always open to like, we like working with eclectic, interesting speakers and so forth. Like even our entertainment industry events, like we have one coming up in San Diego. I have one of the top guys in artificial intelligence there. He's going to talk about branding, leveraging it towards the entertainment field for AI. I have somebody who's a professional. She's a relationship coach. So she's kind of a person who helps people in today's world who are struggling with building relationships, romantic relationships, because of like social media, right? Like it's just like people kind of getting tired of like, okay, well on Tinder, it's like I'm swiping, I'm not meeting anybody, or I'm meeting people who are sending me messages they shouldn't be sending me, right? Like it's a weird world to be in, right? It
Yeah.
works for some people, but so for others, it doesn't quite work, right?
Mm.
So how do you get through that? How do you develop real relationships and understanding all that? So somebody like that, so even though it's an entertainment related thing, I think it's something that benefits my audience. So I'll always I'll bring people like for investing in real estate, handling their finances. So many people, the compounding interest, right? Like if I could go back in time when I was 19 years
Yeah.
old
Yeah.
and listen to some good advice back then, think about 20 years later where I could have been, right? Like
Mm.
that $200 a week would have, equated, multiple millions of dollars today, just in being
Yeah.
steady and disciplined with financing. So since we work with, a wide variety of ages, but a lot of our audience is a little bit younger, I always try to bring people in who can help benefit them, whether it's finances, fitness, and so forth. So anybody who's just listening, love to have you reach out, be a speaker at one of our virtual events, or speaker at a live event. So that's always helpful, because I love hearing different perspectives of life, because in the entertainment industry, I think it's about storytelling again. So
Yeah.
you want to hear both sides of the story, right? You want to hear different versions, different lives, and so forth, because then you absorb those, and those can become characters that you're playing in the future.
Interesting, man. Dude, I love it. I love how you're tying the entertainment industry to the entrepreneurial world like that, man. It's
Yeah,
killer because you're bringing your
yeah,
experience and your vast knowledge from that to this. And I feel like that's a
yeah,
massive advantage that somebody's listening could be able to take advantage of.
yeah.
Dude, we'll leave it with this. What's one thing that you see AI contributing to your current venture that you think is going to change everything in the way that it's going to be executed?
I think the long term, AI is really interesting. We obviously, heard a lot of conversations with obviously with SAG and AFTRA, which is the unions for TV and film, and the concerns about the writers, the
Mm,
concerns about uh, utilizing. One of the big things we've had, what we've kind of gone through is like we do with a lot of talent that are new to the industry. So a lot of times, one of their first jobs will be is to get to be what's called a background extra. So a background
mm,
extra is when you're
mm.
like, think of like Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man swinging over the crowd, everybody's running and screaming. You're one of the people running and screaming.
Yes, yes.
So,
200 bucks for the
so
running and
the
screaming or something
the,
like
the
that.
film industry came
Yeah.
up with they came up with a great idea. They were like, well, we can hire the extra for like 300 bucks for the day, but then we can own their image. So on a go forward basis, we never
Mm,
have to pay them again. And we can
mm.
use them as an extra in any show, any movie from now until the end of time. So of course SAG-AFTRA stepped into that. They're like, no, 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 you can't
No, no,
use somebody that's been
no.
forever like that. So, but it's interesting because I've seen the cutting edge of filming with
Mm,
AI, and we are so close that like literally you're not going to be able to tell the difference. It's just growing by leaps and bounds. Like where you could literally sit yourself and have a great idea for a movie, type out a prompt and create a movie. Like
yeah,
create like an Academy Award winning blockbuster film.
yeah.
May not be here today, but it's gonna be here. So to me, that's really interesting. And the thing with Pandora's box is once you open it, you can't put it back. Like the technology, you can't stop technology. People who try to stop technology are the same people who try to rewrite history, right?
Mm-mm.
History, if you don't learn from history, they repeat themselves and really bad things can happen. So I think with AI, I think the eventuality of it, it's going to be more, it'll have a big impact on the film industry for filming. A lot more content can be produced a lot
Yeah,
faster.
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, even with the writing, the writing, because at the end of the day, AI is really just copying the patterns of language is all it's really doing, right? It
Mm,
doesn't have quite the creativity of somebody who has like a vivid imagination, right? A George Lucas, a Steven Spielberg, these great minds that, an Einstein, right? To be able to close their eyes and see things
mm.
in a different way than anyone else. So I think creativity is something that will always be needed. I think the bar will just be risen, right? Like you
Right.
get, it's
Mm.
just right. It just gets higher level
Yeah.
of getting into the industry, right? It's even with actors now. They made some changes with audition process where they if you're going to audition multiple times for a film, you have to be compensated for the auditions. So that's brand new. Like that's
Mm.
like the casting director, like, oh, what do you mean I got to pay the person to audition? Like, if you're in the industry, it doesn't quite make sense. But if you kind of think about it from outside the industry, yeah, that's the person's time. Maybe they should, if you're going to make them multiple audition multiple times, it's multiple days out of their schedule, right?
I
So maybe
guess,
they
but
should,
I
you
mean, like,
deserve,
it's
right?
part of it though. It's strange because, like,
I
if
know
you're
it
gonna
is.
charge somebody
I
for
believe it
interviewing
too.
for you're gonna pay somebody to interview for your company. I mean, like, where
Exactly
do you
right. It's
draw
the
the
same idea as
line,
like
right?
paying somebody to interview for your company. It's the same,
Yeah,
yeah.
like,
You're right on that part. But the point is what happened though now is now the casting directors versus like if somebody was brand new and you could have as their agent, I could have pushed them to say, hey, listen, I know he's new, but give him a shot. Like
mm,
he really trust me on this. This kid's got what it takes. That person may not get the chance now. So now
mm,
they want the ones like instead of like if I'm looking for ABC level would see could have potential. Now they're like, well, we just want to see the A's and maybe the B's. We don't want to see the C's. So the bar has risen for people who are trying to break into the industry. So like for us, we teach a lot of the talent to like we have them helping write their monologues with them.
mm.
Going back and like reading with them and so forth, like kind of like that. I think at the end of the day, like AI is going to kind of disappear into the background. Like it's like
You think so?
literally it's going to be like almost like your like personal assistant right
Right.
now. Like
Whereas
your
it's
AI
common
is
as an
tracking,
iPhone.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
tracking your diet, it's tracking your health, it's
Yeah.
tracking your schedules. I think over time it'll know you better than probably your wife, your
Yeah.
husband, your significant other,
Yeah.
and so forth. And with Hollywood, like I said, I don't see it replacing that highest level of creativity, but I see it like speeding up the process. It's no every year a better graphic card comes out, right? Like I'm into
True.
gaming. The
Hmm.
graphics get better, AI in gaming, right? Like you'll insert, now the characters will interact with
Well,
you.
yeah,
The
which is
characters will
wild.
remember, yeah, what you
Yep.
spoke about last week. So, yeah. So when you're abusing your NPCs and your game, they're gonna remember
Abusing the
that you were not.
NPCs.
Yeah, you
Now
were
they'll
not
know the
nice to
people that
them.
talk shit back to you, eh?
Yeah, they'll be able to talk smack back to you. So it's just like anything else. It's when the internet came out, right? Everyone's like,
Yeah.
ugh, or when cell phones came out, the recording industry, right? You see the recording industry is always, it's always changing, from records to digital, right? Napster and all those times, right? Or,
Right.
digital medium for TV and film, right? Now it's like, I mean, when they were, with pirating was such an issue. Now it's like the digital version comes out of a movie before the DVD version, right? DVDs
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
and now DVDs are starting to become very hot commodity because of the licensing with all these channels, right? So now you could have your
Mm.
favorite show on
Right.
Peacock, but then if they decide to move it to a different streaming service or they lose the rights to stream it, you no longer have access to it, right?
True.
So people are
Mm.
going and buying DVDs again because now they have ownership of the product and they can
Right.
watch the product,
Yeah.
where in digital mediums you doesn't guarantee, just because you downloaded and bought it doesn't mean that's going to be in your library forever. Sony just had a
Yeah.
big issue with that with the PlayStation. They removed a lot of their content because the licensing agreement they had with, I think, like Discovery Channel or something was up. So people would purchase the content when they
Damn.
logged into their Sony PlayStations, the content was no longer there. It's
Mm.
back now because there was a big uproar over it, but it just shows you that you don't really own, you think you own that content, but you really don't. So,
So dude, where I see AI going with the entertainment industry is being able to generate a movie or a show or some sort of content piece, a webinar in the entrepreneurial world in real
mhm,
time for each individual that watches it. So the way that I see it is that the AI will do a psychoanalytic scan of that person's psyche of understanding what pushes them, what motivates them to continue to watch something and be able to structure a piece of content, webinar, movie in real time for that individual. And each
yeah,
individual gets their own webinar, their own sales process, their own stack at the end based on what the AI deems is what they'll find valuable, positioned in
mhm,
different ways for each person. And man, that's so killer to me because I can't wait for that to be the case where I structure the content of a webinar one time, give it to an AI, train it on everything that needs to be said in the offer, and then it will scan the person's social media who goes into the webinar, be able to transition each individual piece of the webinar based on what that person is most likely to
person
respond
knows,
to
yeah,
and then be able to
yeah,
shift that in real time and have that presented to them. What do you think about that,
yeah.
man? That's where I see it
That,
going, and
that's
it's so
like that's
cool.
like that's like Lex Luthor level. That's like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm over here rubbing my hands together. I'm getting all excited about it.
Yeah, but that's where it's headed, right? And
Yeah,
it's just every piece of technology that comes along that changes the world opens up unlimited opportunities for doors too,
yes,
right? It's like, go back to the horse and, the guy who was making the whips and the carriages for horses when the cars
right,
first came around. You had
yeah,
an industry where you produced a vehicle that there weren't gas stations at every corner, right? They
yeah.
had to overcome all these things, and how fast the world changed. So it's just, it's I can't tell you where the opportunity will be, but there'll be such unlimited opportunity with AI. Like it's just, is AI going to end the world? That's not gonna, my belief, not going to happen, and so forth. I think it'll have radical changes for medical uses and so
Yeah.
forth, like being able to analyze drugs and interactions and so forth. But at the end of the day, a 1,000 years from now, maybe, but not. I don't. The technology is just not there. There's just if you put, it depends on what you're putting your AI in. It's like anything else. AI is a tool. I always used to tell people all the time, like, I can give you a hammer and you build a
Yeah.
house, where you can go break your fingers with it,
Yeah,
right? It's like,
exactly.
it's the
Yep.
same thing. Like,
It's a tool. It depends on how
I
you
was like,
use it.
go on
Yep.
TikTok and see all the people who do silly things and get hurt really bad, doing something they shouldn't be doing because they're trying to get viewership. It's the same thing. It's like, it's like an oven. It's like anything in your house. It's like you got to use a tool the right way. So AI is, at the end of the day, is going to be a great tool. We utilize it for a lot of, our content now and so forth. It's made an impact. But it still needs a human touch. It's still not at the
Right.
point where I can't have it create, scripts and 10 email doctrinations, but what it's really good at is ideas. Like, it's really good at giving you ideas
Yeah.
for products, giving you ideas for scripts and so forth.
Yep.
And then, we're using it as a tool, right? Being able to interact and work with it. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Like you said, like being able to create a webinar in real time, being able
Yeah.
to create content in real time for that specific viewer and so
Yes.
forth. It's powerful, and there are dangers there too. It's like, right, think about, we're entering a political year, right? How could
Yep.
that be leveraged by a political party
Big
to,
time.
we already have echo chambers online, right? Social media is already
Yeah.
the
Oh, it just
algorithm,
throws dynamite on
depending
that
upon what
fire,
you
man.
click. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
only going to see one side of the story. You're not going to see
Hmm.
both sides because the algorithm's designed to keep you engaged on the platform as long as possible, to raise advertising revenue. It's interesting because me and we understand the business side of all the technology. I really wish consumers would understand that. Like, a lot of times when, because we work with models and actors, so we do like trainings called social media domination. And it's not so much on how to understand how to utilize social media as a branding tool. We go through that, but really letting them understand how the algorithms work and how
Mm.
advertisers leverage social media to acquire buyers and customers. Like, we go through like everything from Facebook advertising to, large scale, data collection. And I always like, I'm talking to like sometimes like a room full of people who've never heard this before. And it's just interesting to like it's just like it's like the Matrix, like literally it just literally
Right.
got pulled out of the Matrix.
It is
So I
like
really
that.
wish
No
more people would
kidding.
understand how advertising works. It's like when I send out
No
emails and
shit,
people
man.
write back to like, stop sending me emails. I'm like, dude, it's like 2024. It's an unsubscribe button. Just click
I know, right? I know we get that sometimes. It's like, man, come on, dude. It's right
yeah,
there. You can see it on this thread where you replied, stop sending me emails. The button is right there. It's one click.
yeah, it's like
It's
right
gotta be
there.
one
But it's
click.
like when you text somebody, like, and they have like a hissy fit, like, just reply stop. Like,
Stop.
it's
You're good
like,
to go.
how do you not know this? Like,
Oh.
you put your socks on, then you put your shoes on. You click unsubscribe, you reply stop. Like, to me, it seems pretty common
It's
sense. I use,
2024. No
I, I
shit.
use a
We're not
spoon
talking
for
like
my soup.
2006 texting
Right?
here. I mean, come on. Right, dude. Michael, man, I love it, man. I could talk with you all day, brother. Is there anything else you want to add before we kick this off here?
No, no, that was a great conversation. I'd love to do this again
I
sometime.
love it, man. Me too,
I
brother.
appreciate you having us. Definitely a shout out to you. Phenomenal. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. 100,000%.
Thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure, more than a pleasure. I could talk to you all day, dude. So thank you so much for being here, man. We'd love to have you again. And until then, we'll keep in touch, brother. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Right on, dude. All right. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, go to kylesbook.com and you can get a copy there. I'll talk with you soon.